Last year, both LG and Samsung announced a feature for their flagship smartphone called the Always On display. Now, typically, whenever you lock your device and it's in a locked state, the screen will stay off and nothing will be shown on it. However, with Always On display enabled, you'll actually be able to see some information on that screen at all times. Now, this makes sense for Samsung since their smartphones use an AMOLED display, and to have just a small amount of information displayed on a black screen will not use up that much battery. However, on the LG G5 and the LG G6, they're using an LCD display, which means to light up any kind of information on the screen, the entire backlight has to be on. Now, LG gets away with some of the battery usage by keeping the brightness really low, which can sometimes defeat the purpose of having an always on display. But more often than not, you're going to be using a lot more of your battery life by having this feature enabled than if you don't. For those who don't mind that extra battery life usage, to turn on always on display because it is disabled by default, you're going to need to launch the settings application. And then we're going to tap on the display tab at the top right. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to the basic section. And then right here we have an option and a toggle called Always On Display. So we can just tap that toggle to turn that feature on. But if you see the three dot icon right there, you can see there's some additional options that we can pick through. So tapping on the Always On Display option, in the general section you can see we can choose which type of content we display on the screen. From here we have three different options to choose from. We can have it set as a digital clock, which as you can see at the top is the demo of that. We can set it as an analog clock, or we can set it to our device's signature. So we'll just set it to the analog clock, and then you can see the preview changes right there as well. There's a couple more options here. As I told you before, by default, the always on display on the LG G6 is very, very dim. So just to give you a look at how that is, you can see it's very dim. Even when pointing it at the camera, it's just very, very low brightness, which means you're not really going to see this in any kind of bright sunlight. But if that's something that you need, then you can toggle this brighter option, and again you'll get this warning saying that it will drain the battery over prolonged use. And as you can see, that's a little bit brighter. Now we also have a daily timeout option, because not everybody needs this feature on all the time. So you can toggle that option on if you'd like. And then you can set a daily time to turn off the always on display. So if you only need this for work, you could set it to go off from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. Or if you only use that after work, you can set it to turn off from 10 p.m. or whenever you go to bed until 5 p.m. So that's a nice little way to save battery, because there's a lot of times you will not need that always on display feature to be on, because again it's going to eat up your battery having this feature on. So if that's something that you think it would be useful for you, definitely experiment and find out if the extra battery life usage is worth it to you. And you can do that just by measuring how much battery you normally use in one day and then turning the feature on and then measuring that battery life again. So that is how to turn the always on display feature on with the LG G6.